Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of What Does It Take to Get the Right Shot? Today, I'm going to talk about the long exposure. What is the long exposure and how does it work, and when should I get that kind of picture? Well, first of all, as usual, I'm going to try to use one of my pictures as a sample because I believe it will be a little bit easier to understand if in this specific picture was good or not to use a long exposure. Now, what is the long exposure? The long exposure, it's all about the shutter speed. So it means that when you open your mirror in your camera, your shutter will stay open for a long time. So we are not talking about the aperture, we are not talking about the ISO, we are talking about the shutter speed. When it's a good idea to get a long exposure picture? Sunrise and sunset pictures, fireworks pictures, or maybe some kind of waterfall, water pictures. But this specific picture is about a sunrise. Now, this picture has been taken at the Colorado Rocky Mountains National Park, which is in Colorado. And it's about 4:35 a.m. Now, first of all, because it's dark when you get a sunrise picture, it's better if you know your location a little bit more. And it's a good idea and a good suggestion to discover the area maybe the day before. Google the area, Google the place where you want to go, because again, when you get out there to take your long exposure sunrise picture, it's gonna be dark and you cannot risk to fall in the lake or to find a new friend as a moose or a bird that they live out there. So first of all, when you get out there for sunrise pictures, a torch, a light torch, it's always good because you want to make sure that you know where you are walking. And if you know the area because you've been there before, because you went to check maybe the day before if that was the right spot or not, well, that is definitely helpful. For this specific picture, you can see the reflection of the mountain in the lake. Of course, at 4:30 a.m., you don't see the reflection, so I knew before that that was the right spot for my picture. So once you get there, you need to set up your camera. We said that a long exposure, it's your shutter that stays open for a long time. How long? What are we talking about? Well, we are talking about the shutter speed. Now, the longer my shutter stays open, the more information are coming through. When I say information, I say light. We do have light even when it's completely dark. Now, our shutter speed can be used as a sample like our eyes. When you blink, you cut the light off. So even if it's daylight, if we have too much light, we blink to cut the light off. During the night, when we wake up in our room during the night, we barely see nothing for the first 5-10 seconds, and then we realize we start to see more. Why? Because finally our brain and our eyes are connected and we start to see maybe the cell phone light, the TV red LED light, pollution lights. You started to see the edge of the bed, the sofa, whatever you have in your room. So it's not true that it's completely dark. We do see dark, but the more we keep our eyes open, the more we see. That's how the shutter speed, the long exposure work. So the idea is, if it's completely dark and I keep my shutter open for 5, 10, 20, even 30 seconds, I do start to see more in my final result, in my frame, in my picture. Why? We have the stars, we have the moon. In this specific picture, you can see in the center that it's a little bit brighter than anywhere else because the sun is rising over there. Now, with my bare eyes, I could see just a little spot over here and completely black all around. But because my shutter has been open for longer than 15, probably 20 seconds, well, then a lot of more information came through, and that's why I can see not black, but dark blue or light blue, is even a little bit purple, and way brighter in the center, because I already a kind of source of light, which is gonna be the sun. So the shutter speed is good also because we are seeing some colors that otherwise through our eyes we couldn't see. That's about also the aperture, because when we balance, if you want to, by the way, if you want to follow the aperture video right below, you can find a specific video about that. But right now we are talking about the shutter speed, and we know that usually aperture and shutter speed are working in separate ways, but at some point they have to work together no matter what. So we can go, depending if it's 4:30 a.m. or it's 5, 6, 7 p.m., like sunrise or sunset, depending of when we are taking the picture, we are gonna have different kind of colors. We have cold colors, range of blues, or warm colors, range of yellows, orange, red, pink. Why that? Well, the more I keep my shutter open, the more light is coming. The more light is coming in, the brighter my picture will be. When everything is brighter, everything looks like more yellowish colors. The darker my picture is, the more bluish color will look. So now you know that you can decide what kind of colors you do want in the picture. And because you know what kind of colors you want, now you know for how long you want to keep your shutter open. Now, very, very, very important, the tripod. We need a tripod to take a long exposure picture. We need a flat surface that can be a rock, yes, can be a bench, a table, or even on the ground. If it's what you want to take the pictures at, it's on the ground or it's on the ground level, but you need something that doesn't allow the camera to move, because during those 10, 15, 20 seconds, if we move the camera, everything will be not on focus, everything will be blurry. So when we try to take the picture with our bare hand, even if we don't feel it, we move. Even 1 second is too much. Even at 1/10 of a second is too much, because when we put a pressure on the button, we move. We don't feel it. Our muscles are moving, we are breathing. So we need a flat surface to put the camera on so we can keep our shutter open for as long as we want. Now, I suggested a tripod for the simple reason that, for example, in this picture, if you do want the reflection in the lake of the mountains, you cannot stay on the ground, because if you are on the same level of the water level, you will never see the reflection. So you have to stay higher. And it's not that easy to find a flat rock that high. With the tripod, well, then you can go as high as you want. And the higher, the more reflection you will have in the water. And if you are lucky enough that there's nothing in the water, like no animals or nothing that is moving the water, then it will be so flat that you will see the completely reflection. Now, I'm not gonna telling you in this video which kind of tripod I suggest you to buy, because you can find a specific video there right below. But I do suggest a tripod, but for sure it's a must to have a flat surface to take a long exposure picture. Last suggestion that I can give you, it's a remote control. What am I talking about? Well, I can press my button in the camera and take a long exposure. I can use the timer in the camera, so like I click and actually the shutter opens after 2 or 10 seconds. But now, 2020, they invented a Wi-Fi remote control or even an app that you can download on your computer. What that means? Well, it means that you don't need to touch the camera. Once you set up your frame, once you set up your settings, shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, well, you can even enjoy your sunrise or sunset or fireworks, see specific videos about the fireworks, but you can enjoy it and you don't have to touch anything on the camera. The less we touch the camera, the less risky is that my picture will be blurry or not on focus. Now, I said that the suggestion of the remote control was my last suggestion for the day, but it's not true. Remember that if you want to take a good long exposure picture, you have to play with your ISO. See specific video about what is the ISO and how does it work. But the ISO is the artificial light, is the sensibility of the light, so it's a number that we need to put in the camera to let the camera know, hey, this is the kind of light that I have. The higher number, the more artificial light, the more help from the ISO I will get. So we studied that technically, because it's completely dark, I'm supposed to put a high ISO number. Now the higher ISO number I just said, that it's more artificial light that I will put in. Artificial light is noise. And we said, and we know, noise is no good. I don't want the noise. So what is the only chance that I can avoid the noise in this kind of picture? Let me lie to the picture. I'm working manual and I'm taking the picture that I want. I'm the boss. I manage my own camera and my own picture. And I'm going to lie to the camera and I'm going to tell the camera that the ISO is going to be 100, maybe 200, but I prefer to say 100. Let me put 100, which means it's a sunny day, which of course is not because it's 4:30 a.m. It doesn't matter. I don't want any help from the ISO and I do not want any noise. At that point, I know that I will see black exactly as I see through my eyes. So I will have to play with the shutter speed and my shutter will definitely stay open even longer. That's a long exposure. As long as nobody's crossing through in front of the camera during those 20-25 seconds, as long as I don't touch the camera because I have a tripod, as long as it's not that windy, so there's no way that my camera might just shake a little bit. That's the time that we get a long exposure. So recap of the day. What is a long exposure? Long exposure, it's about the shutter speed and it's about how long my shutter will stay open. The longer that stays open, the more information I get. Informations in photography means light. This is about the long exposure. We can have a long exposure during a sunrise, sunset, maybe some cool water effects or fireworks. When it's good to have a long exposure, when we have a tripod, when we have a situation where we know that the colors can change. So never forget, it's a very skilled kind of picture. Having in your home portfolio at least one great and good long exposure, it's good, because if I have to look at a portfolio of another photographer and I see a certain kind of long exposure picture, I know that he or she knows very well how to use the camera, she knows how to use the settings, she knows what kind of commitments you have to make to get this and that kind of picture. So for today, it's all. Thank you so much. We spoke about the long exposure. I hope to see you for my further videos. I wish you a wonderful day.